Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Sports Minister John Owen Enoh has assured that the federal government will start implementing the National Sports Industry Policy, NSIP, as part of President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. The immediate past government of Muhammadu Buhari approved the NSIP to provide opportunity for corporate and private sector participation in the development of sports in the country, but it was not able to implement it before the tenure of that administration elapsed. According to Enoh, the current administration has endorsed the NSIP as both corporate and private sector play critical roles in sports sponsorship and infrastructure upgrade, adding that the policy has also provided opportunity for moving sports away from being mere recreation to a business. He added that one of the key policy objectives of the administration is that sports can be used as a source of unity, peace, and stability of the country. Job creation also, as well as providing opportunity for exclusivity in participation in sports by both males and females. Joining us now on the show to further discuss his vision for the development of sports in Nigeria is Senator John Owen Enoh, Nigeria's Minister of Sports. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you, Ruben. Great man of right. Good morning.
Good to have you on the program. Well, quickly,
Thank you.
Yes, the sports industry policy. Well, this was approved by the Buhari administration in November last year. And now the Tinubu administration is adopting it, and you have praised that policy. Did you see any need to review some aspects of that policy? And what, if any, is the strategy for really implementing this to make sure that it's not just at the federal government level, that even states buy into it? Because it's a policy that talks more from the federal government perspective.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ruben, and thank you, members of the team. It's, I think the most important and urgent matter before our table now is to even begin the implementation of that policy. When you talk about states and then, perhaps, and or local governments, there's always, in place there's always in place the National Council on Sports, that has to do with, the Minister of Sports Development and all the states commissioners of sports, and as the case may be. I know that meeting would normally, one of the importance of that meeting is to be able to get states to appreciate what the federal government is doing in terms of policies and implementation of policies and things like that. For the Ministry of Sports Development under my watch, it's to begin the implementation of this policy. As the implementation proceeds and the ministry, finds any need to review, as the case may be, it will just go ahead. That is because the problem of the sports sector hasn't just been in terms of the depth of policy. There have always been policies. Policy documents, they date back, to very far, and the problem has been, the will and the commitment by successive administrations to get the policies implemented. So I think that, for the government that is ably led by our President, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it wants to go right down and begin to do things different and, get set to implement this policy and be able to get, the benefits that implementation would bring to the sports sector and therefore to the country as a whole.
All right. Thank you, Senator Enoh. Now, one of the things that has been done in the immediate is to set up, as you've mentioned, an interministerial committee to look at, one of the things that we're looking at is incentives to attract the private sector to invest in sports in Nigeria. Beyond that as well, as part of this is how to market sports to the private sector to get more investment. How do you plan to do this? I know that obviously the committee is going to agree on some of the incentives, ways to market, but what are some of your ideas as minister to ensure that private sector, we're able to attract private sector investment in sports?
Well, incidentally, before, even before I got on this seat as Minister of Sports Development, the last administration, the Inter-Ministerial Committee had been set up by it and then had concluded its work and submitted a document that had to do with, quite a number and series of incentives that, government was supposed to sign on. The only thing it didn't do was that it didn't sign on that document before, the exit of that administration. So one of the things that, needs to be done and for which I'm already engaging, on the matter is to get, those set of incentives that have to do with, different categories of investments and then different, set of incentives, to bolster, the private sector. Indicating, for example, that if you do XYZ investments, you're going to get this number of incentives. So that is, I'd gone, to see, the president, Friday last week, and this was one of the things that I took, to discuss with him. The permanent secretary who had, sat on after the exit of the last administration and therefore the last Minister of Youth and Sports, had actually, written, to Mr. President on this subject matter. I, as minister, had also sent a reminder, so, the meeting with the president was a follow-up, and I think that work is in progress to get that done. After that is done, I think that it will be having to have an engagement with, the private sector, with, private sponsors, with, companies and interest groups that, have ordinarily been interested in funding and sponsoring different aspects of sports. But, because of their experience and because of, issues like the lack of trust and perhaps perceived lack of commitment on the part of government, they've had to hold back. That engagement, I expect, for example, that after these incentives have been granted, it's not every industry player that is even familiar with what is in this policy and what needs to be implemented. It will be to sell this policy. It will be to, not just in terms of the industry players, but to also get, Nigerians sensitized about this policy and about what the benefits are and about what the country stands to gain with everybody embracing this policy, with everybody, doing what everybody should do for the sake of our sports industry and for the sake of our country.
Honorable Minister, good to see you. Congrats on your appointment as Minister of Sports, and I wish you the best during your
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to ask you, let's get
Thank
down
you so
to
much.
that. Today, as we speak, our league is not on TV. Because I was hearing you talk about sponsorship and all of that. What can we do to ensure that our league, one, is on TV, two, properly marketed? Because, Honorable Minister, I have very glowing experiences of the days of Coca-Cola Challenge Cup in Nigeria, where this was a Challenge Cup that was shown on TV. I have glowing experiences of going to our stadiums, paying 50 naira to go and watch 3SC. But today, our league is not on TV. They said they are showing it online. We don't even know what's going on. Our league, if it's properly harnessed, can be a multi-billion naira spinning industry and employ thousands of people. What can we do? Let's start from our football league first, before we talk about even other sports like athletics and the likes. Honorable Minister, did you hear me? Okay, we'll go for a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk some more. We'll be right back.
The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NUPRC) is committed to fostering stronger relationships between operators and host communities. Introducing Host Comply, a groundbreaking online solution that will enable the settlers, that is the oil companies, to upload the incorporated HCDT, upload the 3% operational expenses by assets for verification by the regulator, track, analyze, and report on the use of funds for community development initiatives through IT forensics and compliance intelligence tools, upload and showcase projects that will be executed by the communities, provide an opportunity to measure and monitor distributional equity among the communities, and allow for an open, common framework to the public and civil society for information gathering, accountability, and probity in fund management. For more information about Host Comply, please contact hostcom@nuprc.gov.ng. Please note, pursuant Section 96N of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, the license or lease of a settler who fails to comply with the host community's obligations may be revoked. Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC. We feel progress.
Good news, you don't land ahead.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash trapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
I started Service Foods Products in 2018. I gave birth, and when I was weaning my child, she wouldn't eat most of the commercial foods readily available, and she was losing weight and getting sick almost all the time. So I had a discussion with her pedis, and together she asked me to combine some cereals and legumes and do homemade cereals for my child. I did the formulation, gave it to her. She enjoyed it, she gained weight, and that has been the success story. So I decided to commercialize it. So that's how come Salvage Foods came into existence. My experience during the Access Bank Womenpreneur Pitchathon program was very impactful. We were introduced to a comprehensive curriculum that covered very relevant topics for entrepreneurs. All these trainings has helped to build the brand. I've been able to reach out to a wider section of my target population, and my sales has also increased over 300%. I must confess, the Access Bank Womenpreneur Pitchathon training has been very good. I encourage every woman in Africa to take advantage of Access Bank Womenpreneur Pitchathon program, and your business will not be the same.
Because because coming together beats being apart. Get social and discover the new Schweppes bottle with mojito and Chapman flavors. Schweppes, born social.
This is Rider Ad. Look what we have here. No expensive shooting and editing. No celebrity explaining to you that you can set your price in the app. No sound design, no graphics. Nothing except low price rides. Get one with Rider.
Welcome back to the morning show. We still have Senator John Owan Eno, Nigeria's Minister of Sport. So, as I was saying, sir, good to have you back. I said, what are we going to do about our football league first? Because that's a gold mine if we properly market it. Then, before we talk about other sports, which we have myriads of them, you know, if we properly harness them. Even Nigeria is so blessed that we have participants that once went for a tournament in winter sports. We remember the bobsleigh team from Nigeria that did so well. These are avenues we can cash in on. So let's start from our football league first. What's your thought about how we can market the football league? Get it on TV, get more sponsors in and all of that. Get thinking around that. That's a money spinner.
Yeah, thank you. I think that, 1 month plus down the line as Minister of Sports Development, I believe that I've already started interrogating the issues, that are affecting football, especially the local league. Before even marketing, although marketing is also going on, I give kudos to the present management of the National, Premier, League, committee, led by, my good friend. We started interrogating these issues because, I'm sure, some of you followed, the fallout of Nigeria's exclusion when CAF, invited about 85 number of referees in different categories, center, assistant, VAR referees, assistants, technical people, and out of 85, you didn't have one Nigerian. This wasn't the first time it was happening. It's happened about 2-3 times in the past. But I think that, this also became the first time that we were confronting it. I didn't think Nigeria is a big, enormous country. And if you find that kind of situation and you don't respond to it, so we started responding to it, and I've had about 2 or 3 sessions, and first, therefore, even to, succeed in terms of marketing the local league, and I agree with you, it's huge. Nigeria's sheer size, Nigeria's number, the landscape, the modern talents. Several years back, we saw what the local league, had developed into, and we've lost all of that. So, one of the first things is to restore the credibility of the league. I'm bothered and concerned that in those days when we're in the university and in some other schools and all that, we looked forward to a Saturday where, especially in schools that were in capital cities, where, matches were going to play, matches of the local league. We look forward to a weekend because we all wanted to troop to the stadium to go and watch. These days, even when you find people go to the stadium, I remember I was in the stadium when Nigeria played its last match, the Cup of Nations match against Sao Tome and Principe. The stadium was full, but that was also because the stadium was, thrown open and people trooped in. I look forward to a period in which people on their own who get so interested in watching our local football league and on their own go to the stadium. Like I said, you need to restore back the credibility of that league. You need to get refereeing right. You need to, I heard of a match, people mustn't already know what the outcome is going to be. You know, well, that loses the, you know, the attraction. You know, so a lot of these things will need to get done. You know, marketing key. You know, and I feel, you know, at the moment, I think that some publicity is also being given. I remember when I challenged the committee that I met with in the course of interrogating the matters about refereeing. The last 2 weekends, you know, pictures of, you know, the crowds in the stadium, you know, titled "The Crowds Are Coming Back," were being sent to me. I don't think we are there yet. I think that a lot of work must continue. I mean, I look forward to a period, you know, in which, and at some point in the past, we've had people come from neighboring countries, you know, the sub-region and all that, come to our league, you know. So we need to, the ownership of clubs, you know, it's also something that, you know, we need to look out for. You know, my hope is that with the implementation of the national sports industry, you know, policy, with, you know, government's response appropriately, with the coming in of more and more players in the private sector, even clubs, local clubs ownership, will gradually evolve and transit, you know, from, you know, government ownership. You know, majority of our clubs are also owned by governments at different levels, state governments and all of that. I mean, one is not saying that government mustn't be interested, but I think that I look forward to a situation in which, you know, private people play a more front and lead role in terms of club ownership, in terms of, I mean, and this ownership mustn't be 100%. I mean, the state governments must be willing to allow, you know, quite some share of club ownership. I mean, all of this is going to have the effect of turning around the local league. I mean, I've also challenged NFF and I said to them, look, Nigerians are very excited about the national team. Anything about the national team, Nigerians want to watch and Nigerians want to. But as you see, one of the things that is going to help our local league is that, I mean, I don't think that the present situation in which if the national team coach wants to invite, you know, players to camp for a particular match, that if he's inviting 23, all 23 are foreign-based. I think that, although that too is going to depend on the quality of the local league, I think I want a situation in which the foreign-based players compete for shirts, and shirts are not just as automatic and automatically available for them. And that if, you know, I mean, we played the friendly with Saudi Arabia the other day, and if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 local players playing in that game, and they return and they are playing home, and they are participating in the local league, you know, because they have even made appearance in the national team, it becomes attractive for the football followership to want to go to the stadium. I mean, all of these things, there's a lot that needs to be done. And I think that the good thing is that there is the determination and there is the will to want to turn this around. And by the, you know, grace of God, I think that we'll be able to get there.
Well, the national sports industry policy is quite a bit voluminous, over 150 pages. And it has a lot. The main theme being, promoting sports as business and encouraging the private sector. But if you were to look at most of those items, in terms of implementation, what are you likely to prioritize? Take, for example, the build, operate, and transfer of sports facilities. We tried it. It has not worked with the National Stadium in Lagos. It has not worked with the MKO Abiola Stadium. There's also something in that document that is called the Athletes Welfare Fund. Every now and then we hear that, oh, our athletes are suffering because nobody is taking care of them, and so many other things, tax rebates, access to land for those who want to invest in that sector. I'm sure you know the details better. What will you prioritize?
Well, you've mentioned examples of trying, you know, the bill, operate, and transfer, you know, as it relates to the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos, and the Moshood Abiola Stadium, you know, where I'm presently seated, you know, where my office is. You know, not so much in terms of trying. I give you an example about the Lagos Stadium. You know, I met, you know, a concession arrangement, you know, when I was appointed Minister of Sports that was, you know, ongoing. I didn't think, for example, that the first thing I should do because of a new government and because I'm new minister is to say no to that process. No. I think that, in a session in Lagos, I had said, if that is what is going to be required to get the Lagos Stadium back to its lost glory, that I endorse it fully. So what the last minister had done in terms of the Lagos Stadium was to encourage, private people, with passion and interest. And for the case of the Lagos Stadium, you had, Kensington Adebutu, come in and restore some facilities, the electronics scoreboard, the tartan tracks, the playing turf, So it wasn't really a full bill of trade and transfer, situation. The same thing with the Moshood Abiola Stadium, where, the country was lucky to have, Alhaji Aliko Dangote also take up some aspects of it. In none of this have we implemented really fully the real essence of a PPP. Therefore, I don't think that, we've tried it in the past and it has failed. I think that it seems to be the way to go, especially with too much competing interest, too many sectors crying for resources and for money from government. What it does appear is that the PPP, and in its different forms and contents, would be the focus, in implementing the national sports, industry policy. The athletes' welfare that you're talking about, again, it boils down to available resources. Again, it boils down to, so if, and for me, beyond every other detail in that document, the key actually is what government needs to do to get back the private sector, to get the private sector interested. I mean, okay. Now, and I'm sure you saw the same thing that I saw last week, Friday, where the Guardian carried a lead story, cover page, that talked about what? Talked about the fact that the country's sports sector loses about 500 billion in yearly revenue because of lack of funding, because of lack of patronage. And I mean, sitting here for the short time that I've sat and getting to know the kinds of things that I've come face to face with, I think that figure is even conservative. That figure is even more than that. Therefore, I think that getting the private sector to come in, and part of the strategic plan, of the ministry, under me as minister, is to look at the welfare of athletes. Because I've also been besieged. I mean, I've faced, quite some sorry situations with even the athletes we're talking about. Sometime last week, I received an audience, the deaf football team that went to Malaysia for a competition. That will be the first time they'll be in that competition. And, I remained in touch with them while they were in Malaysia, and their situation was a sorry one. I mean, every now and then. So you must get challenged. If you sit on this seat and you're not challenged enough to try to do something more about the welfare of athletes, both those that are currently on and even those who have retired, which will give some kind of encouragement to the new and upcoming ones, then I don't think that, you'd have gotten it right. So a lot of these elements, most of the things you've mentioned, you land for investment, the ease, all of that will come under the ease of doing business. That ease of doing business, that the challenges and the problems about it are not just limited to the sports sector. But we're talking about the sector, we're a minister, and therefore I'm not going to dwell too much in terms of how much it affects other sectors of the national economy. So all of these, maybe one of the things that has been lacking, I mean, I'm not saying I'm the one that has it, I'm not sure it's exclusive, but I think it also has to do with, commitment, and passion. I mean, to want to make impact, in terms of the different directions that you want to pursue these. So I like to make a plea that the fact that certain things have failed in the past would not mean that they will fail now. And that, we all should be open enough to expect that something different can happen.
On that note, Minister, I would like to thank you very much, Minister of Sports of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Hippolyte Amadi, Professor of Medical Engineering and Technology, winner 2023 Nigeria Prize for Science. Stay with us. We'll be right back.